Welcome to the Private Practice Pro podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution. Just to have you on, I'm already laughing. Reina, can you introduce yourself? Just tell everyone where you are, what your practice is about. Everyone who's listening to this is probably a fellow therapist. So tell us a little bit about your practice.
So I'm Reina Zelonky, a marriage and family therapist. I have a group practice on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I specialize in addiction, and I have three other clinicians that work with me. I primarily I do a lot of couples and family work, and I would say a fair amount of my practice is addiction or substance abuse and use related. And then other clients are struggling more with kind of anxiety, depression, and a lot of relational issues.
Awesome. Okay. And are you fully virtual? Are you in office? What's your kind of...
At this point, I do mostly in person. I feel strongly about in person. I love that we all have the option to do virtual.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still want to do it, but I try to frame it like it's a hybrid model so people can do a little combo and at least come in once a month. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing when everyone can come in person. And I was just saying to you off of camera, like, we haven't had anyone, I don't think, hopefully I'm not forgetting one, talk about building a practice in New York City, which is, I would imagine, maybe a little different than in other places, maybe not.
It might be, yes, it might be different. So I vividly remember the day in grad school when they told us what our expected earnings would be.
Oh my God, Reina. I remember. Okay, so we should back up and tell people we went to grad school together.
We went to grad school together. And I just vividly remember that moment.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, oh, hell no. You know, that's just not going to be the case.
It's just not enough.
It's just not enough. So I went home that day, or maybe it was sometime that week, and I think I took 2 days off of my internship, or I called in sick, and I sat down and I made a spreadsheet of like all the top places that I wanted to work in New York City. And I just started hustling. I was cold calling. I was emailing. I think I got a hold of a secretary of this place, Hazelden, that I wanted to work at.
Yeah.
And I somehow got her to give me the cell phone number of the director there.
Why does this not surprise? Wait, okay. So let's back up. Where were you? You were in grad school at this point? You were in your first year?
Over my second year.
Right.
I think it was must have been around this time, or February, March. February maybe.
And what was the number that you remember them telling us?
I think it's 50,000.
Okay, yeah, I remember 40, but we're in the same range. Okay, I remember being like, shit, I'm paying more than this for grad school. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
per semester. Okay, so you get a hold of the director of Hazelden.
I got a little bit. So no, I left. I think I might have left 2 or 3 voicemails. I mean, I was really crazy in that hungry way. And I get a call back, and she's like, "I'm sorry, who are you?" And I was just like, "My name is Reina, and you want to hire me. And I am this girl in California, but I'm from New York, and I have always wanted to work at Hazelden." The reason why I wanted to work at a place like Hazelden and some of these other places, I had a kind of a plan of working in a very kind of high-end treatment facility to build a network and then ultimately go in private practice. But I knew I needed to get my foot in the door there. I was working at the VA, which was unbelievable experience, but obviously different type of setting, and that type of setting probably wouldn't launch as well for a private practice private pay.
Right.
So she ended up saying, send me your resume. I sent her my resume. And 3 days later, she said, would you fly to New York for an interview? So, which was crazy.
Wait, I didn't know this. Okay, so this is you're in your second year. Okay, keep going.
Yes. So, so my dad was like, just do it virtually. My mom's like, the flight is already, your ticket's in your mail, but in your email,
Right.
getting on the plane. So I flew back to New York and I went in for this interview. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I was offered the job at Hazelden to be, to help run their family program and to do intakes. And, it was bottom of the totem pole, but it was a foot in the door and it was all I needed. And it wasn't a fantastic salary, but I think it was like 50 or 55. So it was great for just.
Well, this was your first job out of graduate school and you were pre-licensed, right?
Right. I was pre-licensed and they were going to help me get licensed. And it was everything I wanted. I mean, it was the addiction, it was the pay, it was groups, and families and couples and all that.
And you had been going to school in California. So also, I think we should mention you were an MFT going back to New York with a California
there is a
degree.
license. Right. There is a license for MFTs in New York. You can get, that's what I am. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but it's very, very rare. And most people are licensed social workers.
Right.
So people are not so familiar with the license. So I worked there, which was amazing and a great experience. I learned so much. I was really in the trenches.
Right.
And then I reached out, after a year and a half or so, I reached out to work at one other. It was a treatment facility, but it also was a sober living. It was kind of like private lofts and brownstones, hidden lofts and brownstones for like high-end clientele coming out of treatment. And I was part as the director there. So I helped run these, like overseeing the other case managers and clinicians. And that like so much fun and so exciting because it was very much team collaboration, kind of different from private practice in the sense that there's a lot less boundaries. Like you could get calls at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m, but it was at the time of my life, it was fun and perfect. And I'd be ready to jump in at any point. And I was
and were you licensed at that point or no?
I was licensed. Yeah. So I got licensed at the end of Hazelden. I took my test. I got my hours. I took my test. And then I wanted something a little bit more like just emergence kind of crisis management type experience, which was what this was. And while I was doing it, I was really trying to build relationships. So every psychiatrist I was meeting or in outpatient clinics, even doctors and nutritionists and all people in the wellness field, I was trying to build my quote unquote book of business, as we call it, with that end goal in mind. And I ended up leaving the job, and it was a little bit, I remember it being like, I left the job because it got a little too crisisy. It was really wild. And I was like really ready for a change of pace. I met my now husband who I'm like so pregnant and so emotional about everything. And he was like a voice of reason, basically. He was like, you need to like do what you always wanted to do and change course. Oh my gosh, I don't know why. But it was a big leap because, as we all know, working for an agency is very stabilizing and going on your own. And I knew someone who had renovated this beautiful suite in Midtown New York, right next to Grand Central. And I went into this room and I was like, I want this office, and I had some savings, but not a client at all to my name. And I kind of convinced my good friend who was a therapist. I said, let's go in on this office. And we negotiated the price and we got a good price. My dad helped me set it up. And I remember
your dad helped you set it up as in he came in and like put together furniture?
A wall and made it look like a real office. Cause like, I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I sat in this empty room, and I must have made, I was such a hustler. I must have made a list of like hundreds of people, or like
Right.
rabbis and doctors and like
Right.
OBGYN and orthodontists. And
Right.
I mean, my husband was like, holy shit, you are crazy. I was taking subways to Brooklyn and taxis to
Yeah.
Queens and taking lunches and coffees. And I was
Right.
like so social. And one day it just started happening, and it just came in. And the thing is, what's so interesting is like where it came from is like, you know, and I say this to people who are building practices now, is like, you know, it doesn't come from where you expect it to come. I mean, like, I think the people who really, like, I don't know why, you know, like believed in me, you know, were people that you wouldn't expect. Like, for example, like, I mean, I grew up in New York, so I had a pediatrician when I was little who now is a pediatrician for my kids. And she, you know, sent me a lot of kids and families at the time.
Yeah.
And there was a rabbi who I had a random coffee meeting with, and he sent me some couples who were struggling that were in like the community.
Yeah.
And my mom at the time, sadly, our dog has passed, but like would spend a lot of time walking our dog in Central Park, and like was always talking about me. And like a few women in Central Park walking their dogs, like asked for my card, and like their daughters ended up being my clients. And like, it's just, and I think the beauty of building a private practice is like, you realize it grows itself after a while.
Yeah.
And, that's like the most special piece is like, you know, it spreads from word of mouth. And one of the things that I felt strongly about in the beginning was to not make money the priority. So that I know everyone has different opinions, but I would see people over $40. I would see people $60. Like, I was like, you might have a friend who can pay $200 or a friend who can pay $300. So like, and I was afraid, like, in the end of the
You were
day,
just getting your name out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was Manhattan. So like, there was like Los Angeles. I mean, there people are working hard and earning good livings, and they're able. And so even if that person isn't, they're one step closer to.
Right.
So yeah, so it got really busy, and I think I got really pulled into the addiction world in the sense I started really working closely with some sober livings that needed, you know, people who were living there to have therapists. So those became really stable referral sources, and some psychiatrists that I started just really collaborating with. And over the years, you develop these really kind of, they start off as colleagues and coffee dates, and then they really become friendships. But I think you have to enjoy that piece of it, because it really is a big part of private practice work and the collaboration. Like when you have clients, like making sure everyone on the team is valued and included in decisions.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, honestly, Reina, like you're preaching to everything that I feel like was the cornerstone of success for my practice. And it's unsurprising to me, because I think back on those years in grad school and just the number of conversation. Like when you're saying on this podcast, like you're a hustler, like you have been since the day I met you. You know, like I think about so many conversations we have where you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And I think so much of being successful in business and private practice is like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Like this professor is going to tell me I'm going to make $50,000 a year and I'm going to go live in Manhattan. That's impossible. Okay, I'm going to figure out a different way. And, you know, rather than being like, well, someone told me this, so like, fuck it, I'm going to give up, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's huge. And I think a lot of times people don't have that or don't see that in themselves of like, okay, I'm going to make the list of 150 people and I'm just going to start calling the list, you know, and put myself out there. And it's scary. Like sitting with people those first few years, I don't know about you, but like for me, it was fucking scary at first. It'd be like, you should send people to me. I'd be like, I don't know if they should send people to me.
I know. And you learn as you go, and being human is such a big part of it, you know, and people seeing you be human and being authentic and being healthy is just like one of the biggest criteria, I think, of being a therapist, is like just being a person who's doing their own work and evolving along the way.
100%. Well, and I like what you said too, of like people that started out as colleagues and ended up as friends, because I think that is so important. Like if you think about, I'm sure this happens to you, but like often I'm like driving home and trying to make calls before the end of the workday and talking to this psychiatrist about this client who I care about and they're struggling. I mean, it's like eventually these professional friendships become friendships because you're used to caring for people together,
Right.
And then it's no surprise that you start referring to each other. And also it takes a little while to build those relationships,
Takes a little while. Yeah, you have to have that patience.
Yeah.
Hey, therapists. Are you listening to this show and thinking, I really want to launch my own private practice, but I have no idea where to start? Make sure to check out Kelley's Private Practice Roadmap course. In the course, Kelley gives you the exact steps you need to open your own thriving practice. You can find the link below in the show notes.
Okay, so Reina, tell me now where your practice is. So like you eventually became a group practice owner. So when did you start to add in other therapists?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, and I really believe in this parallel process, of like as you grow, your work grows. And so it's so important to keep growing as a person because for me, I would have taken that leap had I not had a baby and felt the need to, because it felt daunting and also didn't feel so appealing. It felt like high risk. It felt like a lot of management.
Yeah.
But I moved to a different neighborhood in New York and I wanted to be able to really be present with my first baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I hired someone, and that was kind of the start of this journey of kind of growing a group practice. And then I had my second baby, and I hired another, I think 2 people. And at one point I had 4 people. So, I think there's a really beautiful piece of it because you get to supervise and you also get to share. We share a lot of cases. So if I'm working with a couple, one of them might work with the teenage girl, one of them specializes in DBT and self-harm and adolescence, it's just they may work with the 12-year-old, I'll work with the couple. And then I have someone else who actually specializes in older adults. So if there's there was a grandma in the family who needed help. And then there was a young man who was struggling. And we have someone who specializes more in he's a male therapist and he works with men primarily. But so it's really nice because I think it speaks to my belief in the whole systems approach.
Right.
And the only way you can really help an individual is if you look at all the relationships in their life. And, it's one thing for someone to come in and complain about their boyfriend and their child or their husband and their child, but it's another thing to say, here's what I'm seeing in the room and this is what's working and this is what's not, and to really get in there. So I think that's been really special.
What I want to know is, so for your team or the people who work with you in the group practice, are they primarily licensed or pre-licensed or how, because in California it's different. How does it usually work?
They are primarily licensed.
Yeah.
One of them was a social worker, needed social worker license, and I wasn't able to supervise. So I had a colleague who was doing the supervision, and I paid for that supervision.
Yeah.
And I was connected to the colleague about everything that was going on.
Yeah.
We still do monthly lunches and meetings. I'm still in touch with all of them every week, if not every day. I mean, we're always talking. Yeah. We share a space because of my hours being a mom. I'm kind of working more during the school day. And then, sometimes I'll do a session occasionally after the kids go to bed. Yeah. But I try to be with them in the late afternoon. So they then can come in and just do a lot of the teenagers in the after school hours, which I'm doing a little bit less of these days. Yeah,
I've kind of switched away for exactly the same reasons. It's a lot of my teen clients need to come, although it kind of depends, But yeah, I think it's always interesting too, because sometimes when I see people start group practices, they'll immediately hire all pre-licensed people. And I'll often tell people that can be great, but it also can be really good to hire on licensed people who have a little more experience, especially if you're wanting to take a step back from a group practice and you don't want to be hand-holding all the time. Yes. Having an established clinician come in who really knows what they're doing and that you can really trust, not that you can't trust somebody who's pre-licensed, but just they might have a little bit less experience. I think that can be a really good thing too,
Yes, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, I don't know. Everyone wants to do it differently. I've seen some people start a group practice and they have decided that they almost enjoy the management piece
Right.
like more than the clinical work. And so they've
Right.
done very, very little clinical work. And it's almost a big part of what they do is supervising and curriculum building and hand holding. I think didn't know what to expect. And I think I still just love the work. Like I still, at the end of the day, there's nothing like a new couple walking in my door and like getting to know them. I mean, I don't know if I have this, I'm not like a born supervisor. I mean, it's fine, but I would prefer to do the work. So having people who are a little bit more seasoned is helpful.
Right. Oh, yeah. It makes a huge difference. I mean, huge. Okay, Reina, I know you're busy and you have clients. So I want to ask you the last question that I always ask everyone, which is, what do you wish you had known or someone had told you when you very first kind of decided, okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to open my own practice?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's that belief that you have to have in yourself. I think there's so much fear. And I know for me, there was so much like hedging and looking at maybe I should take on a side job or a part-time job at a clinic. And, I'm thankful to have been in a relationship where someone was like, just stick with it. Cause had I not had that partnership, I think I maybe would have been a little bit more afraid of just kind of sitting in an empty office for hours. But I hung in there, and I think you just have to have patience, and it really does. It blossoms, and you have to, believe in yourself.
Then you start turning people away, and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I ever doubt it? So, all right, Reina, thank you so much for being on today. Feels like a full circle moment, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Good to talk to you.
You too.
All right.
Ask Kelley Anything is just around the corner. But first, a word from our sponsor. Stay tuned for Kelley's response to your private practice questions.
Therapists, do you want more clients at your full cash rate? Mentaya is a platform that navigates out-of-network benefits for clients. They get clients on average 70% back on therapy by filing claims and chasing down insurance companies. They handle literally everything so that you can focus on what matters. Click the link in the show notes to learn more and get 1 month free using the code PRO. Welcome back to Ask Kelley Anything. Let's get into today's question. I'm going to play it right now.
Hi, Kelley. You're such a big inspiration. I guess I have a kid in the background, but really quickly, I just wanted to ask you. Yes, I will do that. I just wanted to ask you if you think that there is still room for us therapists to market ourselves in new practices via Instagram, via TikTok. Is that market oversaturated? I don't know. I think I've heard you talk before that you don't think it is oversaturated, but I still want to see if you have hopes that it is still marketable to market your practice via Instagram. So sorry about my kid in the background. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, I feel this on a visceral level because I cannot tell you guys the number of times I have sat down to record something and had my kids in the background. So I love it. I love mom entrepreneurs. Next, do I think that TikTok, Instagram world is oversaturated with content creators? No, I absolutely do not think it is oversaturated. If you look at any other industry, DIY, mommy blogs, home inspiration, slime inspiration, like you name it, there are so many more content creators in other spaces than there are therapists. We are just now seeing therapists coming into the social media space. I can remember when I was in graduate school, it was like taboo, and now everyone loves it and everyone's doing it. And, I see so much of Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming in and really normalizing talking about mental health on social media. And I think it's here to stay. People want mental health content. And I think the more you can put yourself out there, the better. Now, I talk about this in my Marketing for Therapists course, that I don't necessarily think you have to be a content creator to have a successful private practice. And I think that the tipping point here is if you love creating social media content and if you love consuming social media content, then great. By all means, promote your private practice on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, whatever it is, or Threads. But if you don't like it, there are tons of other ways to market your private practice. I talk about this in my Marketing for Therapists course. You can find the link in the show notes. But do I think that the market is oversaturated with therapist content creators? No, by no means. I think you have to get out there and do it. I know for so long, I used that as an excuse in my mind for not putting myself out there like, oh, there's so many other people. My voice isn't going to be unique or whatever. That's just an excuse. Get out there. Hope this helps.
Are you wondering how to promote and fill your private practice? Look no further. Kelley's comprehensive online course, Marketing for Therapists, will equip you with the essential marketing strategies to build a thriving six-figure therapy practice. Don't miss out on this opportunity for success. Check out the show notes to sign up.
If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is, 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.